Hey everyone, it's Bruce, and it's April the 4th, 2020. It's also my regimental, the Hussars, birthday today, so happy birthday to the Hussars. I just wanted to do this video just to keep track of what has happened over the last 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Christmas time, we had Marlene's family over. Tegan came from out west, and Ryan was here, and we had Christmas in Dogtown with them. And we had planned that we would leave on the 28th of December and fly to Europe. So we flew to Paris, and the reason why we went to France is because we were going to house sit for a British couple in southern France. So on the 28th, we flew from Halifax to Montreal, and then from Montreal to Paris. So we got to Paris, and everything was okay. We found out once we got there that things might be a little slow, and because of the France was on strike, basically the whole country. So we had a couple interruptions, but really not that many. A couple days while we were in France, and we're only going to be there for 3 days. On our second day, we got a message saying that our train on the 30th was canceled. So, and we had to catch a train down south to where we're going to do our house sitting. So therefore, we had to scramble around and get a train down a day before on the 29th. So that all happened, and we did get one, and everything worked out except for we wanted to spend a couple more days in actual in Paris, but we'll probably get back there someday. So we got on the train and went down south, and went to this small place called Angoulême, and we rented a car, and from there we drove to a little small village, and we met up with this British couple, and we arrived there, and then the next day they took off. They took off on the 1st of January, early in the morning, and we stayed there, house sitting two dogs and their house for until the 10th of January. On the 10th of January, we went back up to the main town of Angoulême and caught a train south to Spain. So we caught a train to the Spain border, and once that train stopped, we walked across the French border into Spain, and then found a hotel. The next morning, we caught a train to Madrid, Spain. So where we were staying in Madrid was maybe a 10-minute drive from the Madrid train station. So it all worked out, and we stayed in Madrid with his beautiful family at another Airbnb. We love doing these Airbnbs, and I think we stayed there for just about a week, and that was scheduled. Our plan was to, after Madrid, the plan was to go down to Portugal, and then from Portugal to go to Panama. So that's exactly what we did. When we stayed in a week in Madrid, and then we flew from Madrid to the capital of Portugal, which is Lisbon, and we stayed in Lisbon the whole day, and then we caught a smaller plane into the southern part of Portugal, which is called Faro. We flew into Faro Airport. We rented a car there and went to our Airbnb. We got there kind of late on the, I think it was the 15th or so of February, and it was an apartment building, but beautiful buildings, beautiful apartments, and it was totally decked out with all the kitchenware and everything. So it was a beautiful place. It was about 7 o'clock at night. Before we got there, we actually got some groceries for supper. So I was cooking away, trying to cook, and the stove wouldn't come on. So I heard some noises next door, people next door. So I went over and knocked on their door and said, "Hey, I can't get my stove working. You guys know anything about this?" And the guy was actually from Toronto. It was a younger couple from Toronto doing the same thing as we were doing. And he said, "Yeah, it's one of those stoves that you got to have a metal on the stove at the time, so not convection, but anyways, he came over and fixed it up for us, showed us how it worked, and from there on in, we spent 2 weeks in Portugal. We had a car the whole time, and we drove the whole southern part of Portugal. It was beautiful. The landscape there is just amazing. On the last day, this is like the 29th now of February, we were making our way to Panama. At the time, you can hear some of the rumors going on about this stupid virus that's going on. And we had to fly from Faro, Portugal, to Amsterdam and stay the day in Amsterdam. And then that night, we flew all night over to Panama City. And there was no checks or anything like that at any of the airports or anything. When we got to Panama City, that's when the checks start coming. Panama was really strict on all this stuff, and they wanted to catch it right off the bat. So when we were getting off the plane, before we even got to our luggage, before we even got to the airport, there was all these probably nurses and staff all dressed in costumes, gowns and masks, and they took everybody's temperature with this portable thermometer, and they announced that anybody that was from China or had recently visited China, or anybody that was from Italy or had recently visited Italy, had to go one way, and everybody else could go and get their luggage and through passports, customs and stuff. So we were part of the ones that we didn't get to go to Italy. We actually had planned at one time to go to Italy, but we changed our minds and wanted to go to Panama instead. So we got our luggage and stayed overnight in Panama City, and then caught the bus. It's about a 5-hour bus from where we want to go in Panama. Once we got to Panama, we met one of my army buddies that was there, Ralph Crew and Dina. And I haven't seen Ralph in about 25 years or more. And we hung out together for the whole month of March. Marlene and I stayed in a beautiful little Airbnb. And the guy's name is Walter. And he's got 2 brand new houses right on the beach, or very close to the beach. And it only cost us $650 a month for that. Now, we were going to stay 2 months, but we wanted to see a little bit more of Panama. So at the end of March, we wanted to go to 2 other places. But because of the virus and everything shutting down, Panama basically shut their whole country down the 3rd week of March. And that made us start worrying about, are we going to get home? We had flights booked for the 29th of April to fly out of Panama to Toronto, and Air Canada canceled them. So the only flight that we could get out then was the 3rd of May. So we booked the 3rd of May flights, and at the same time, things were happening so quickly in Panama that they started closing down all the airports, and Ralph and Dina got an email saying that if you want to get out of Panama, contact this email address, and it's from the Canadian Embassy. So I got the email address from them and sent them an email and said there's 4 Canadians that want to get back to Canada as soon as possible, on the earliest flight possible. So within 2 hours, I got an email back saying that all 4 of us are booked on this flight. So we had a rental car for the whole month, and so it was kind of weird because we had to turn the rental car into one place, but the airport was about 3 hours away. So I got a hold of the car rental place, and told them our dilemma and asked them if they could come up with a driver so that we can go to the airport, and then the driver could take the car back to the car rental place. And that's exactly what happened. We paid the driver $100 to take the car back, and everything worked out. We got on to it was a chartered flight from Air Transat that the Canadian government put on to get the rest of Canadians out of Panama. And majority of the people on the flight were from Quebec, from Montreal. And but everybody was there was no screening to get on. There was no screening to get off. And once we got to the Montreal airport, we were going to catch a flight to Halifax. Well, because of everything that was going on, and we heard that if you wanted to catch a connecting flight, we would have to be quarantined for 2 weeks in Montreal. So we said, the hell with that. We're just going to get a car rental. So we rented a car in Montreal and drove to Doketown. We stayed overnight in Doketown one night, and then Ralph and Dina grabbed the rental car and went to Cape Breton, where they're from, and they turned it in the next day or Monday. But I just wanted to keep track of all this. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff, but that was our 3 months away. We were going to spend the whole month of April away too, but because of everything that's going on, I'm glad we're home and safe and feeling good.